Hello, and thank you for joining us for Reporters. I'm Tom Burgess-Watson, and today we're examining France's path towards decolonisation, a process that began in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War. Well, European powers were under pressure from the United States and the Soviet Union to grant independence to their colonies across the globe. And it was in this context, and with President Charles de Gaulle all too aware of the enormous contributions made by colonial forces in the war effort, that the road to decolonisation was mapped out. And it was precisely 60 years ago that most of France's colonies in Africa became independent. And yet, 1960 didn't mark the end of French influence on the continent. Far from it.
Summer 1940. General de Gaulle was seeking a French territory to establish his legitimacy, and he found it in Chad. Governor Félix Éboué was the first to join the Free French and provide them with human and material resources to reconquer France. At the end of World War II, European powers were left weakened, while the American and Soviet victors pushed for decolonization. In Brazzaville, Charles de Gaulle acknowledged the heavy price paid by African troops. The colony's residents were officially declared citizens and freed from forced labor. From this point on, associations, unions, and political parties were authorized. This would allow the rise of great African leaders, such as Senegal's Senghor, Ivory Coast, Houphouët-Boigny, Guinea's Sékou Touré, and Central Africa's Boganda. All rode the wave of independence which would engulf the continent. Léopold Sédar Senghor was born on the Senegalese coast in 1906. A man of letters, he was raised in a Catholic family, a minority in a predominantly Muslim country. As a child, his education was entrusted to Father Dubois, who taught him French and humanities. A brilliant student, he was soon sent to Paris for his graduate studies.
He noted that the French were very welcoming at the time, and it helped him to settle in, especially at elite high school, Louis Le Grand, where his classmates were future French President Georges Pompidou and writer Aimé Césaire, with whom he would create the Negritude movement.
Back home, Senghor caught the eye of Lamine Gueye, the leader of the socialist movement, who invited him to enter politics. He proved a popular figure and was elected as a member of the French Parliament. He then created his own party. In 1950, he overtook his mentor, defeating Gueye in the election. A few years later, he entered the French government. The other important political figure, who was well acquainted with Paris and the intricacies of power, was Félix Houphouët-Boigny. Alternatively, a teacher, a doctor, and a canton leader, he became one of the largest planters in Ivory Coast.
You can see that it's very fruitful. We can get 1 kilo per tree.
In 1944, he created an agricultural union to defend the interest of African farmers against the colonists.
He was considered as a dangerous anti-French activist, backed by his union, but also by the population, who saw him as a leader.
Now an MP, in 1946 he founded the African Democratic Rally, known as the RDA, which affiliated itself with the French Communist Party. But 4 years later, he would break with the communists amid harsh suppression of their supporters in the colonies. As the Cold War set in, France's Minister for Overseas Territories, François Mitterrand, convinced Houphouët-Boigny to work with the government. The tactic paid off, and the RDA became the main political force in French Africa. Born in 1922 in Upper Guinea, Ahmed Sékou Touré was much younger than the other African leaders. Unlike his counterparts, he did not pursue higher studies because of his undisciplined temper. He started working young, first at a private company, then the post office and the treasury. In 1946, he founded the first trade union in Guinea, fighting for workers' rights. In 1953, he organized a 72-day strike, which led to a wage increase.
It's an important strike because it created solidarity between Guinean workers, between the cities and the countryside, between women and men. It created cohesion within the labor movement. Union membership shot up. Clearly, he was considered to be the young, fiery trade unionist on the left wing of the African Democratic Rally.
He became the leader of the Ghanaian Democratic Party, the RDA's Ghanaian section. Soon, his party won all the elections, and Sékou Touré became the key player in Guinea. Another African leader, Barthélemy Boganda, fit a different profile. He became the first black priest in Ubangi Shari after his parents were killed in colonial violence, and the church took him in and encouraged him to pursue a career in politics. Elected to the French nationalists. They soon
In concrete terms, he was basically defrocked, which led to an awful media campaign against him. Terrible cliches appearing in colonial media, like Father Bogonda's a defrocked priest who falls in love with a white woman. He stood his ground, and he quit the popular Republican movement. For him, it became an opportunity to create his own party, Maysan.
Maysan, known as the Movement for the Social Evolution of Black Africa. It was founded on the premise of equality and sought to end exploitation by colonial settlers. As his support grew, he was elected president of the Grand Council of French Equatorial Africa and mayor of Bangui. In 1954, the process of devolution gained momentum. France lost the battle Bien Phu in Indochina, while in Algeria, the National Front launched an armed insurrection. France found itself embroiled in a war that wasn't officially acknowledged. In Algiers, on May 13th, demonstrations gave way to France's fourth. De Gaulle was called out of retirement and leave the country. To regain, sought to form a new republic executive branch. He also wanted to rebuild ties that united France to its colonies and its colonies to each other. He consulted with Houphouët-Boigny and Senghor, but the two men had differing, if not opposite, viewpoints.
Senghor and others put forward the idea that if they're to exist on the African continent, they need to create a federal state with the Federation of French West Africa. Other actors, such as Félix Houphouët-Boigny, categorically refused this idea because Ivory Coast was the richest country, and he didn't want to share this wealth with countries like Senegal or Sudan.
Eventually, the French government chose Houphouët-Boigny's proposal, which envisioned internal autonomy for the African territories while still remaining under his sovereignty.
We, Africans of Black Africa, will obtain the absolute independence in the way we manage our own matters, without the inconvenience of an illusory independence, an independence in name only. because we will continue to obtain economic, technical, cultural and financial support from the mainland until we will be in a position to contribute to the overall prosperity of the community.
Armed with this proposal, General de Gaulle went on a tour in August. The objective was to convince Africans to join this new African community and encourage them to vote in the referendum on September 28, 1958. In Brazzaville, he was welcomed by Barthélemy Boganda, who was not in favor of the community.
Boganda was really disappointed when Houphouët-Boigny became a minister of the French government in 1958, because he was someone who destroyed all the Pan-African projects, and he sought the Balkanization of Africa.
I never sought out to be a drug addict. I don't look like a drug addict, so I've been told.
I started drinking when I was 13, and I'm now 62.
I don't think I could wear short sleeves again.
I don't want to wake up one day and have nothing left. No belonging.
Addicted Australia starts Tuesday on SBS and on demand.